Hi friends, how are you doing? Marvelous Monday is here, so let's make something marvelous out of it because usually Mondays aren't my best. So tonight I'm going to bring you some more techniques that are beginning watercoloring, and so I'll try to keep it really basic, but we're going to use a new stamp set today. So the one that we're using today is called Dainty Details, and it is a coordinating bundle that goes with a set or a free designer series paper that's in Sale-a-bration called Dainty Flowers. They're gorgeous. Of course, you know how much I love flowers. Hopefully you do too. If not, you're putting up with an awful lot. So anyway, I want to show that to you, but I'm also going to be showing you the boho blue mini die stamp and cut and die machine. Stamp and cut and die machine. It can be part of a starter kit if you're interested in joining as a demonstrator. Now, just because you join does not mean you need to sell. You don't need to do Facebook Lives. You don't have to go door to door. You don't have to tell anybody about it. You can just enjoy the discount. And that's how I started many, many years ago. Because I love it so much, I was a little bit of a natural, just showing people how to do different stamping techniques, that it kind of just flourished from there. I had to quit many, many years ago because I moved from Washington State to California, and I picked it up again in 2020, just at the beginning of the pandemic. So somehow I've made it through, and I'm growing little by little, but that's beside the point. The boho blue die cut machine is so cute. I'll have to show it to you. But anyway, we'll enjoy that here in a second. So let's get started. Okay, so I showed this to you, I think, briefly the other day. And this is a display board that I show my customers when they're in class. This is the stamp set, the Dainty Details. So you can see it's got some really beautiful little florals, some beautiful fonts with their verses. Sending love during the season of growth. Thank you for your kindness. Yet to come. And then there's all these cute dies, and these dies coordinate with these stamp sets. So this one matches that one, and then some of them are just extras that don't necessarily match anything that's here, but they are really fun, like these cute little daisies, the stems and leaves, some more stems, more flowers, but I can show you more about that later. These are the coordinating colors that come in this free Dainty Detail or Dainty Flower DSP. So these are all the different sheets. This is the one side, this is the back side. It's beautiful watercoloring. This is one, this is the other. So you can see they're two-sided, and they both sides have beautiful details to them. And then it's got the rich razzleberry. This one is starry sky. This one is fresh freesia. I think this one is crushed curry. We've got blushing bride, mossy meadow, and old olive. So lots of really beautiful coordination in this, and these are just some card samples. So so it's on page 55 of your new catalog, the new mini catalog that's January to April. So it's a limited time. We're not guaranteed this will be in the next annual catalog, so be sure to pick it up as soon as you're interested. And then this is the coordinating paper, and so more samples of cute cards and pictures. So this is free with $50 purchase, and this bundle is $54.75. So if you purchase this bundle, you automatically could choose the coordinating excuse me, paper. And so that's super fun. That makes it really exciting. Okay, so let's get to what we're going to be doing. So these are the dies on a little magnetic sheet, and this is the stamp set. So I've already done a little bit of prepping, and I use Stays On ink to color this. And then this one here, I used my rich razzleberry, and then I came in with Mossy Meadow to try to color that. But this is a background piece that has just the Mossy Meadow, and I want to show you how to do that as well. And then, you know, we have these pencils that I used with you, and let's see, this is the Old Olive, and then we have Rich Razzleberry here as well. Let's see, which one is the Rich Razzleberry? Melon Mambo. Oh, here we go. Rich Razzleberry. And okay, so with the Stays On ink, as you remember, it's special because it won't bleed if you get it wet. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to color some of the leaves with my watercolor pencil. And the Stays On is just a black. So I'm going to do all the stems. You don't have to do a lot of coloring because when you're going to add water, it's going to add more color at that point. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the Rich Razzleberry. Okay, so then I'm going to get one of my water painters. Now the water painter does have water inside of it, as you can see, but you can also just dip it in water, and you want to do just one color at a time. So I'm going to use the water to just do the green, which is, this is the Old Olive. And I'm not trying to be real precise because, like I said, when you're doing watercoloring, sometimes it's just a loose effort, you know, nothing real specific. Okay, so then I'm going to clean it off, get yourself a rag, and now I can start doing the Rich Razzleberry. I probably should have given it more time before I started adding the Rich Razzleberry because it could bleed a little bit with the Mossy Meadow, or sorry, the Old Olive. Okay, so here I used the watercolor pencils, and here I stamped it in Rich Razzleberry and then just used the water painters, and it bleeds a little bit. The green is not as green as it is with this one. So you can see the difference. Kind of like when I did the one last week, when I stamped it in the early espresso, the brown, and then we came back with the blender pen or the water painter, and it just kind of made some of the colors bleed, or that was 2 weeks ago. Okay, so this is, you know, you can use the inside of your little stamp pad if you want to. I just usually squeeze it together. This is a new one that I got, so I hadn't done that yet, but you can see just by adding a little bit of water, you can get color. Okay, so this is just really pretty, and you can just have it bleed a little bit, have a little bit of the the color around your image just to give it a little bit of a background. Just kind of adds a little bit. You can't really see very well. I could do the same thing with this, or what you can do is you can create a background. So I'm going to create a background using Rich Razzleberry. And the first thing I want to do is, actually I want to use a bigger paintbrush. So I'm going to use this bigger paintbrush, and I'm just going to wet the area that I want to create the background. Okay, and then I can come in and I can just spread the color as much or as little as I want to. So I tend to want to start on the light side, and then I can add more color to the middle. And the reason I'm doing that is because sometimes it's nice to have just a pretty subtle background of color, and then you can put something on top of it either you can stamp directly on it after it's dried, or you could die cut it. Okay, so this one is just little buds, and what I did is I stamped it in Mossy Meadow, and then I used my water painter just to spread the Mossy Meadow out a little bit, so you can see that it's all green. So this one's all green. Okay, so I know that we've done some stuff with the Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine, but look at this cute little machine. Isn't that sweet? So it's got some basic gray, and this, it's a new in color that is going to come out in the new catalog. We have an annual catalog that comes out every May, and then we have mini catalogs that come out in in July, and another one that comes out in January. Okay, so the fun thing about the dies, they coordinate with the stamps, and I'm going to cut this out. And as you can see, I have to make a sandwich. So this is plate number 1. I'm going to put that down, and then plate number 2, that's the one I'm going to cut on, and then I'm going to put down the cheese, and then I'm going to put down the meat. We'll call the die the meat. Hi Judy, thanks for joining me tonight. Okay, smooth as butter. Okay, so there's the image. So you can see that you can just set this little image against your watercolored background. We're going to let this dry a little bit more, and then I can set something against it. So that's one that I can die cut, or I can die cut this one, which coordinates with this die. And the nice thing about this set of dies is the set of dies will work with this mini machine. You don't have to have a big machine to die cut, which is awesome. And so when you're looking through the catalogs and you want to know whether one of the stamp sets that you like or one of the die sets you like, will it work with the mini machine? And you'll see down at the corner, framed floret dies, they work with the mini machine. So on page 55, you can see that the Dainty Delight dies work with the mini machine. So you can see that. So it's great that you can do that. There's also a couple of stamp sets in here that have both photopolymer and cling sets. The photopolymer remember, are the ones that you can see through. These are cling, which you can't see through. The red rubber on the bottom, they cling to the block. The photopolymer are clear, which is really nice, especially for beginner stampers, because it gives you something that you can see. Looks like I need to rearrange this. I got it a little bit out of whack. Okay. So this background, once it dries, I think it'd be really pretty having this one right over the top of it. And this one is dry. And so you can see that it just kind of having that watercolor background is really pretty, and it allows you to just make it pop up. Now I could add both of these together. Isn't that pretty? So I'm just layering a little bit, but I could even die cut this one out and put it on that one. So it makes for really pretty cards. And there's so many different pretty cards or paper, and as you can see on the back side of this is this really pretty cardstock. But there's another one in here that we could use that would make for a really pretty background. This one right here. So let me cut this one down. It's just a little bit too long. I need it to be 5 1/4. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so I'm just going to use a basic white thick cardstock. Use my bone folder instead of my nail. Okay, and then I can just glue this layer down. It's so hard to glue this pretty paper down because both sides are so pretty. But nice thing about it, I have quite a few packs, and so I can use both sides and not feel bad because I've got lots of it. Okay, so I'm going to do something that I haven't showed you, and I'm going to distress the edge. Now, you can use different tools, but the scissors work really well. I also can use my nails, and I'm just going to distress the edges of this cardstock. Just kind of makes it look like it's maybe a vintage or a rough cut of watercolor paper. And this time, oh, I forgot to show you. So I'm using watercolor paper, and I forgot about that. So I'm using the Fluid 100 paper. Stampin' Up! Sells this, and it comes in 5 by 7, and I typically will cut it in half, so it's 3.5 by 5. And so if you look closely at this paper, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a bit of a texture, and it's nice and thick, so it's a really nice quality watercolor paper. And that's what is allowing me to get the ink to bleed and become this really pretty background. So I did this one earlier. I did this one with the Mossy Meadow. And I'm going to just distress the corners a little bit. And then I'm going to glue this down. Watercolor paper tends to roll up a little bit as it dries. And I'm okay with that because it just kind of gives it a little bit more of a 3D effect. Okay, what I do need are some dimensionals, and I didn't bring them over. So I'm going to use some of my dimensionals to attach. You can see I used both sides. Thank goodness there's two sides to every piece of paper because I do find myself using both sides. Okay, so I'm going to put this one here. Then these are the mini dimensionals, and they work really nice when you've got something small and detailed like this. And then I'm going to, and remember with these two, I just stamped this one in Mossy Meadow and then used my water painter to get it to bleed. I stamped this one in Rich Razzleberry, and then I was able to get it to bleed, and I can show you that here real quick. But now we need a sentiment. So I've got some extra cardstock here. And which one should we use? Should we use Thank You for Your Kindness or Celebrate You? Let's use the Celebrate You. All right. And we'll use Mossy Meadow. And then I think I'm just going to fussy cut around it because I don't necessarily want it to be perfect. So when I fussy cut around my paper, as you can see, I'm moving my paper and my scissor hand pretty much stays in place. You're able to do better little, let me get this so it's not quite so large. It's easier when it's smaller. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I didn't want to have to cut out a little rectangle. Okay, just need a couple of dimensionals. Isn't that pretty? Really easy. I think we need some bling. What do you think? I think bling would be good. Some of my favorite bling is the brushed brass butterflies. And these butterflies I think would look amazing with this. Let's give that a little bit more of an angle. And I typically try to put my little embellishments in a triangle. And I try to put the elements in odd numbers. So I've got 3 items here, and I've got those 3 here, and it just kind of draws your eyes around in a circle, and it makes for a really pleasing composition. I know that's a fancy term, but it's a term for for art, and you can tell I've taken art classes. Okay, so for this one, we just remember we used the watercolor pencils to color it, and then we used the water painters. And so this one I can die cut as well and put it on this really pretty paper. So should we do that? I think we've got a little bit of time, just a few more minutes. Okay. Always bling. Thank you, Judy. I appreciate your kind words. Okay, so let's find the die. That's the tricky part. Oh, here we go. Should always put them back on my little magnetic sheet. That way I don't lose them. Okay. I did stagger the plates a little bit this time because I didn't want my die to move. That you just have to make sure that you have your plates over the die and under the die. Okay. And I think we have another really pretty paper that would go nice under this. Let's see. Let's see if I have one here. It's already cut. Actually, this paper would be really pretty under it, I'm thinking. Or I could even do this one underneath it. Let's do this one. So I'm cutting it 4 by 5 1/4. Oh, and this little spare piece can be glued down here, and it just adds a little pretty on the inside. So let me glue that down for this other card. So I've got this card, and now let's get another card base. Okay. And then we'll glue this down. These flowers are so pretty. If you are into fussy cutting at all, you can fussy cut to your heart's content and have tons of beautiful, because these are all watercolored images that an artist from Stampin' Up! Actually put together. So I'm just going to distress the edges again like I did before with my scissors edge. And again, you're not looking for perfection. You're just the rougher the better. I don't know if you've seen watercolors in a museum, but a lot of times they'll have a rough edge where it looks like somebody handmade the paper, and that's kind of what this does. Okay, so it's still drying, so it's going to lift up a little bit until it gets to the point that it's drier. And then we'll get some dimensionals on the back. And this one, I probably should have done it first, but I think I can still stamp the sentiment directly on the paper. So let me clean off this stamp. That worked. We have a little scrap of this beautiful paper, so I'm going to put a little bit on the inside just to add a little interest. You make the paper big enough, you'll have less area to write, which sometimes isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes I don't have a whole lot to say, but I do like to say something. Just give a little message of love. These butterflies are so pretty. All right, 2 cards. Aren't they pretty? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. We went a little bit over, but it was worth it. I know it takes a little bit longer for watercoloring, and I showed you how to die cut your watercolor image. So if you're interested in getting a discount, you immediately get a 20% discount by signing up to be a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Like I mentioned, you don't have to do anything. Like I started out and I just played. I just wanted the discount for myself. But as you promote, you get a higher discount. I'm at Silver Elite, so I get 25% off, plus I get another 1% of any of my sales as a quarterly bonus. So that's nice. And then, of course, I have a team, so I get a part of their sales as well. And I'm planning to do this for my retirement. I'm not retired yet, so I need to build up my customer base and such. But you don't have to do that. To just enjoy the discount, I've got lots of people in my team. I know lots of people that just do it as a hobby, and they just want the discount on their goodies. So that's the best part. So there's a link there to learn more information on my Facebook page, and there's also more information on my blog. And just let me know and I can send you some information. So it's a great community. There's a lot of people that I've gotten to know that have become great friends that I wouldn't have known any other way. And they've just blessed my life like you would not believe. So I've got a great upline with more people, and we just get together and have fun. Some are hobby demonstrators, some are serious business-minded people. So we have a little of both. So I'd love to have you join my team, the Wild Violets. We bloom where we grow, so it doesn't matter where we are in our life. I think that we've all just bloomed together. So have a good evening and the rest of your week. Hopefully it goes well, and I'll see you on Friday.